Hello everyone, it's Joe here from Draft FPL and welcome back to a weekly series helping you find some good value free agents and waiver pickups in Draft FPL. We are on to game week 11, decent way into the season now. We're starting to get a feel for how teams are playing, how teams are setting up and who looks like some decent picks. I've got a load of picks coming for you today. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new. If you want more insight from me, more data, more analysis, hit the Patreon link down below. There's plenty of stuff going on there as well. Let's get stuck straight into the first pick today, which is Max Kilman. We start with defenders as always. Kilman is available in 67% of draft leagues, and that information is powered by Draft FC as always. Link down below if you're interested in checking that out. Next four fixtures, Wolves are kind of mixed. Sheffield United away this week is really the one I'm targeting, so I've got a few Wolves picks for you today. I think Sheffield United, home or away, is definitely the team to target. They're the worst team in terms of attacking data and the worst in terms of defensive data, so any team can keep a clean sheet against them, any team can score against them. I think that if you're looking at just specifically a strategy where you're targeting one team, Sheffield United is definitely that team, unfortunately for them. So that fixture I really like. It's then Tottenham at home, which is a tough one. Fulham away is decent in 13. Arsenal at home, tough again in 14. Wolves' defence isn't the best, so I probably wouldn't hold past this Sheffield United away fixture, but I definitely think for this week specifically, they are one of the best clean sheet shouts from teams that have available players. The fixtures are a little bit tough this week to pick out some clean sheets, in my opinion, mainly because there aren't that many defences from the lower teams that look viable at the moment, but I think this fixture is definitely one you can target. As I said, Kilman's available in 67% of leagues. If he's not available, the next best option in my opinion is Dawson. Prefer the centre backs from Wolves because there is a little bit of rotation in the fullback areas, but I think Kilman and Dawson, and probably to a slightly lesser extent Totti, are pretty much nailed on. I think with Neto injured at the moment, it's more likely that they stick with a back three, which would mean Kilman, Dawson, Totti. I think that's probably the most likely scenario. Dawson's got great threat from set pieces as well. He kind of always has had that in his locker, really good in the air. So they are the defenders I would target from Wolves this week. Next up, a little bit more of a left field shout. I'm looking at the Burnley defence, which is not something I've said so far yet this season because they've not been great. They've got 0 clean sheets. The defensive data is about 16th in the league, but they have been improving week on week, and that hasn't always been reflected in like the goals conceded column, but their defence has been steadily getting better. The underlying data has got better and better every week, and I think this run coming up could be where we see them turn it around, and it is a little bit on the punt side, but I think if you can get on early, you could do quite well out of this little run. So Palace at home this week I think is a really good defensive fixture at the moment. With Eze and Elise both injured, I think Palace's threat has gone off a cliff. They're one of the worst attacking sides in the league at the moment, so a clean sheet against them isn't out of the question by any means. The problem with the Burnley defence, in my opinion, is actually picking someone that's definitely going to start each week. It is really tricky because Company obviously comes from that Pep school of thought where he rotates a lot. I do think Dara O'Shea is probably their best centre-back. From what I've seen, and I've watched Burnley quite a lot this season, he would be the one that I would be building the team around. Obviously, I'm not Vincent Kompany and I know far less than he does, so we'll have to defer to his wisdom over mine, unfortunately. But I think Dara O'Shea has got the best chance of starting these 3 home games that we're targeting. So he's probably the one I'd go for. Charlie Taylor at left back is another option. He is probably slightly more safe because there aren't really any other left backs in the squad, but he didn't start the season and Company didn't really want to use him. It seemed he was kind of the last resort because he is a left back. They didn't have anyone else that can play there effectively after trying some different options. So I think Charlie Taylor is probably slightly safer. To be honest, whoever you go for, if you do go for one of them, I would lean heavily on the predicted lineups going into the weekend and see if you can find like some Burnley specific correspondents, let's say, who are a little bit more clued up than I am. I mean, I can make a best guess at who I think is going to start, but I'm not as comfortable with picking their team as I am with a lot of the other Premier League teams, mainly because it is very difficult because, as I said, Company does like to rotate. But I think O'Shea or Charlie Taylor are probably the two that I would be looking at. And like I said, Palace at home, West Ham at home, Sheffield United at home in 3 of the next 4 is an unbelievable run. So I actually think it's a pretty good time to load up on Burnley. A defender, maybe a mid, maybe a forward. I don't want to push it, and I probably wouldn't go for all 3, but maybe one in one position might be a good shout, because I think they are a decent footballing side. They've just not quite got the balance right yet, but I think they're getting there. Final defender this week is Collins of Brentford. West Ham at home this week, really good fixture, available in 69% of leagues. I think he's slightly ahead of Ben Mee in the pecking order, and Ayer as well. I think it looks like Pinnock is definitely the first choice, the best centre-back, and the one I would pick if he's free, but he is quite highly owned, especially after his goal last week. He'll be very popular in the waivers if he's not free. Next up, I think Collins is the next best pick. I suspect Brentford will probably go to a back 4 against West Ham. That's kind of normally what they do against not the top teams, especially at home. They'll go to a back 4 and play a 4-3-3. That's what I would expect. In that case, I think it'll be Pinnock and Collins as the back 2. If Collins isn't free, you could risk Ayer, but I think if they play a 4-3-3, I'm not sure if he'll play. He could play left back. I think Hickey or Rorslev is probably slightly better option, but beyond Collins, I might not bother risking it, because there'd be nothing worse than bringing in a Brentford defender and them not even starting, or probably more likely getting a 1-pointer. So I'd probably just leave it if Collins or Pinnock aren't free, because there's a lot of different things they could do in that back 4, and I don't really want to risk it. And I don't think the fixture's good enough that you absolutely need a Brentford defender this week. West Ham are not a bad attacking side, but I do think it is one of the more favourable fixtures that you can pick up on. On to midfielders then. First one I've got for you is Brennan Johnson. I couldn't believe he was available in 64% of leagues. I actually made this, I did the prep for this video without him included, because I just assumed he was like 90% owned. It was only actually when I was looking at my own waivers in one of my leagues that he was free. And I thought, I wonder how free he is. I looked, 64% availability. So definitely someone I'm interested in, someone I'm going to be trying to waiver in this week. Almost, because I'd already done the prep, I did think, should I just leave him out? Because I really want to pick him up. And I know that some people in some of my leagues do watch the content, but I thought that's not really how I operate, so I'm just going to put him in anyway. The next 4 fixtures are kind of mixed. Chelsea at home, Wolves away, Villa at home, City away. It's not the best run. Chelsea at home's not bad. It's not great, but it's not bad. Wolves away is perfectly good. Villa at home I don't think is that bad either, because defensively away from home Villa struggle a bit more. City away is obviously very tough. So I think the next 3 are okay, and I'm pretty sure off the top of my head the run improves after that City fixture from game week 15 onwards. So to be honest, I think Brennan Johnson's probably going to be a season keeper anyway. I don't think the fixtures are that relevant. I think as long as he stays fit, which you would think you would hope that he will from now on, I think he's going to take Richarlison's place in the side. I'm very confident of that. Might not be this week. They might looking at easing him back in, but I'm pretty sure by game week 12 onwards he will be first choice. And I think a first choice player in the front 3 of this team, especially someone that is a clinical finisher unlike Kulusevski, and someone that is very Brennan Johnson's probably biggest attribute is his final pass and his final shot selection. They are very good, and it was something we didn't quite get to see enough of at Forest because they didn't have that constant pressure that Spurs have. I think he's going to be a brilliant player in this side. I don't like to say it as an Arsenal fan, but I think he's a really, really good fit for Spurs. So it is definitely someone I'm going to try and pick up and hold long term. Next up, I'm looking at Everton this week. Brighton at home, it's not an easy fixture to get points from, but it is quite an easy fixture to score in. Brighton's defence is poor. Even Fulham managed to get a goal against them last week, and Fulham can't score for toffee. I do like the Everton attack this week, and looking forward, the fixtures, although they've got this bad run that lasts for a long time, the fixtures have toughened up massively from the start of the season. Brighton at home, Palace away and Forest away in the next 3 isn't that bad, especially Man United at home as well is like the toughest fixture in this run of 4, and that's not even that bad either. And Everton's data is unbelievably good. Their attacking data is like 5th in the league. They have had amazing fixtures, so I would expect to see some regression, but even if they drop down to like mid-table attack, I think this run is still good enough to profit from. Doucouré is definitely the best midfield pick of the bunch. He's only available in 38% of leagues, but a lot of people have dropped him after their tougher fixtures, so he does have some availability. He's definitely the one I'd go for, top of the list. Next up would be McNeil, in my opinion, available in 97% of leagues, takes a lot of the set pieces, has better data than Harrison on the other side, although Harrison did get the assist last week. I would still prefer McNeil long term, but it's very close. There's not much in it. If both are free, I'd take McNeil. If only Harrison was free, I would happily take him. I don't think it's that big of an issue, but I do like them, the midfielders, for this next run of 4. After that it gets tough again, so you might look to drop then, but I do think this little mini run in the middle of their tough fixtures isn't actually that bad. Especially, you know, Palace have got some issues at the moment, especially like injury wise. United have got an array of problems. Forest away is probably the toughest fixture from an attacking point of view in the next 4, and that's pretty good anyway, so I'm pretty happy to hold an attacker through this run. Just an aside as well, if DCL is free in your league, absolutely snap him up. He's only available in like 10% of leagues, but for a forward that's actually quite high, so I would definitely take him if he is free in one of your leagues. Next up we have Adingra of Forest, available in 88% of leagues. They've got Villa at home this week, which is not the easiest fixture ever, but I do think they'll score 1 or 2 in this. Villa play with a decently high line, and I think Alanga's pace is perfect to exploit that on the counter-attack, so he is someone I'd definitely be looking at in game week 11. And I think West Ham away in 12 is actually quite a good fixture for him as well, because West Ham being at home in that one will come out a little bit more, again giving a little bit more space for Adingra to get in behind. Brighton at home in 13 is exactly the same, he'll have space to run in behind, and then Everton at home in 14 is a pretty good fixture as well. So I actually quite like this run of 4 for Forest from an attacking point of view. I think Adingra and Morgan Gibbs-White are both good picks at the moment. I know Morgan Gibbs-White's frustrated a lot of managers, many want to get rid of him. I do think he's a very good pick for the next 4. He may blank in all 4, so may Adingra, but you know, there's no point looking back at what he's done previously in terms of point returns and thinking, well, I don't want him anymore because he keeps blanking. That's kind of reactionary and probably not the best way to play. The best way to play is to look ahead and think, okay, let's remove all emotion from it and remove the annoyance of the constant blanks and look at the underlying data, look at the way he's playing and what's he going to do for me in the next 4 games. And I think in the next 4, both Morgan Gibbs-White and Adingra could do quite well. So I'll be holding Morgan Gibbs-White personally. I know many people will be asking me in the comments what to do with him. I would hold. I am holding. I own him in 2 leagues. I'll be holding, and I may pick up Adingra in a couple of others because I do think Forest have got a decent chance of getting some goals in this next 4. Next up, someone I did pick last week, but I just want to reaffirm that I think Adingra is a fantastic option. I know he blanked last week. Brighton didn't really look on it. I think they struggled without João Pedro, to be honest, and I do expect him to come back in the lineup for this Everton game. Available in 57% of leagues. I think he's going to play the vast majority of minutes on the right-hand side. If you're someone that struggles to cope with players getting benched, maybe don't go for him, but I do think he's going to get more minutes than the likes of Ansu Fati or basically any of the other Brighton mids apart from Matoma. So I think he's a really good pick. There's nothing else I can really say. Everton away, Sheffield United at home, Forest away in the next 3. Fantastic fixtures, and someone that I'm just going to hold throughout this run and see how he gets on. I think he's going to play the majority of minutes. He may not start all 3. I would expect him probably not to start all of the next 3, but I think he'll start at least 2 of them, which should be enough to get a decent return from him because the underlying data, as always with Brighton players, is very, very strong. Finally then, someone just a bit of a left field pick that I fancy, Scott McTominay, available in 83% of leagues. I think he's probably the best non-Bruno Fernandes pick at United at the moment. And that is a little bit of a weird thing for me to think, because I don't particularly rate him that highly. But I think the problem is, for his entire time at United, he's basically been played at the number 6, the deep lying sort of destroyer role, and he's just not very good at that. And I thought it's because as a player he just wasn't quite good enough, but I think it might just not be his position. I think he's better. He's actually pretty good in front of goal. I mean, his record for Scotland over the last year or so, where he plays a much further forward role, is ridiculous. He's a goal machine at national level. Yet for United, they rarely play him there. And I know they have Bruno Fernandes, and that that mixes things up a little bit. But if Bruno's going to play kind of a creative role from the right, which he certainly can do and be effective from, why not play McTominay behind Højlund to try and at least get some goals? And the fixtures are really good for the next 3. Fulham away, Luton at home, Everton at home. If McTominay starts all 3 of those, especially if he's playing a little bit further forward, which I think he should and probably will, I actually think he's a really good pick for these 3. Not someone I'd be prepared to hold long term, because I think in some of the tougher fixtures he will just come out the lineup, and he's not guaranteed to start. They do have a decent amount of options. They've got Bruno Fernandes, they've got Mason Mount, they've got Eriksen. There are a lot of different options in the central areas, but I think the best way for United to get results at the moment, in the way that the team's playing, is to play Højlund up front, Rashford on the left, McTominay at the 10, Bruno on the right, and then Eriksen and Amrabat, or Casemiro and Eriksen in the deeper roles. I just think they look better with that threat from McTominay, and he's proved it. I mean, he's done well recently, and I think if he gets the minutes, it will continue. On to forwards then. The only one I've gone for this week is Kalasic, I'm going for. Available in 93% of leagues. He had quite an unlucky time at Wolves so far. He was quite a big signing when they got him in, and then he did his ACL in his first game for the club. Then was off for a long time, obviously, as per everyone is that does their ACL. Struggled to get back in the team. But I think he could be the biggest beneficiary of Neto's injury. He's come on in a lot of the games recently and has performed well. He's a really good finisher for someone of his stature. You think he's just going to be a big target man, but he's actually quite good with his feet. Very strong finisher. I think if you're looking at this Sheffield United away game, even if he doesn't start, I think he's probably about 50-50 if he's going to start, to be honest. But I'm very confident he'll get at least half an hour. And the way he finishes and the way Wolves finish games, I think even if he only plays half an hour, he could be a really good pick. So I'm actually considering taking a punt on him this week, even knowing that he may not start. I wouldn't be surprised if he does start, to be honest. But like I said, it's quite difficult to figure out what they're going to do without Neto, because Neto is such a big creative force in this team. I wouldn't be surprised if they move Cunha out to the right and then play Kalasic through the middle with Hwang on the left, just to try and replace some of that creativity they get from Neto with Cunha, because Cunha is a good dribbler and can kind of contribute towards what Neto does. The problem is then they miss out on Cunha's creativity through the middle, which is a big part of how they play. So it's a bit of a tricky one, but I'm willing to take the gamble just for this fixture specifically. Okay everyone, that wraps up my picks for Game Week 11. A little bit of a longer one this week. I had loads of picks and I just wanted to chat a little bit. So if you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new, check out the Patreon down below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.